I want to talk a little about Chanukah Taka and connect it to the Tanya that we're learning. We know that we light the Chanukah Menorah that we light is seemingly modeled after the Hadlakas Haneres in the Beis Hamikdash, the Chanukah, the Menorah which was in the Beis Hamikdash. But there are many differences between the Menorah in the Beis Hamikdash and the Chanukah Menorah. The most obvious difference is that the Menorah in the Beis Hamikdash had only 7 branches, and the Chanukah Menorah has 8. The Shamish isn't counted as it's a Shamish. So the Chanukah Menorah is 8 candles, and the Menorah in the Beis Hamikdash was 7. That's one difference. Another difference is the time when the Menorah is lit. The Menorah in the Beis Hamikdash was lit during the daytime. Taka remained lit the whole night. But when was it lit? It was lit during the daytime. And the mitzvah to light the Chanukah Menorah is mitzvah on mishatishka hachama. The mitzvah is after the sun sets. A different menhagim, exactly when. Right after Shkia, after Sisik Chavim, but it's definitely after. The mitzvah is to light it after it gets dark. Besides for Shabbos, when we can't do it. But the mitzvah is mishatishka hachama from when the sun sets. That's another difference. A third difference between the Menorah and the Beis Hamikdash and the Chanukah Menorah is that the Menorah in the Beis Hamikdash was lit inside. And that's why the Shul Menorah, which in some respects is more similar to the Menorah in the Beis Hamikdash also, we light it inside. Whereas the Chanukah Menorah, the one that we're Yotze with at home, so you know that the mitzvah is that it should be mi-pesach beisay mi-bachutz, it should be outside. In the olden times it was mamish outside. If you go today to Eretz Yisrael, I'm sure you've been there Chanukah many times. Today also, I don't know if it's in the whole Eretz Yisrael or only in Yerushalayim, but also they light the menorah outside. It's the whole Eretz Yisrael, they light the menorah outside. There are these plastic boxes, they light the menorah there. Yeah.
It's nice to walk and to see all the boxes.
Beautiful, beautiful. You walk in the streets and menorahs outside in front of every house. So for whatever reason, a lot of people don't do it, but we do it by a door, which is symbolic of the door to outside. We light it by the window, perhaps. But al kapanim, it's not, the mitzvah is not, you're not supposed to light it on the table inside your house. Again, either by the door, which represents, either mamish outside, or by the door, which represents going outside, or by the window, which is facing the Rosh Hashanah. So these are 3 differences which there are between the Menorah and the Beis Hamikdash and the Neiros Chanukah, the Chanukah Menorah. And the Chassidus has explained that all these 3 are connected. All these 3 differences are connected. In the Beis Hamikdash normally, so it wasn't, when the Beis Hamikdash was around, there wasn't a time of darkness, spiritually speaking. And therefore, it sufficed to have a menorah of 7 branches. It sufficed to light it inside, and while it was still day. During the times of Chanukah, at that time there was a tremendous choshech in the world, a tremendous spiritual choshech in the world, spiritual darkness at that time. And to combat that darkness, the normal light wasn't enough. You needed a greater light. You needed a greater light in order to be able to combat that darkness. And that's why the Chanukah Menorah has 8 candles. We know that the Klei Yakar talks about it, the Rashba talks about it. The number 8 represents higher than Teva. 7 represents Teva. The number 7 represents the natural cycle, which is why 7 days of the week, and then 7 years of a Shemitah, and 7 Shemitahs of a Yovel. The world was created in 7 days. And if you want to go deeper, according to Kabbalah, that's because the 7 emotional attributes of Hashem which are invested within creation. So 7 represents the idea of Teva. It's what's called the Hekif, the cycle of Teva. And number 8 represents the idea of what's called what the Kli Yakar and the Rashba call the Shomer HaHekef, that which is above the cycle, which is L'mayla min HaTeva. So number 8 represents something which is otherworldly, completely above and beyond this world. That's, for example, why a bris is held on the 8th day, because the bris, the covenant between a Yid and Hashem, is beyond the world, completely above and beyond the world, beyond Teva, and is not subject to any of the limitations and fluctuations that characterize this world. So in order to combat, when there's a terrible Golus and a terrible Cheshach, as was the time of Golus Yavan, so in order to combat that, you needed a higher Oyer which is higher than Teva, Oyer which is higher than this world, and that Oyer can be lit at night, and can be lit outside, in the darkness, because the purpose of that Oyer, the purpose of that light is to combat and to, right, the Cheshach that's there. Now we know that one of the most basic Kabbalistic axioms is that everything that happens above is elicited from down here.
Elicit means
we evoke it.
Means started from here.
It started here, right?
Yeah.
Right. And in the words of the Gemara, it's b'midah sha'adam moeded moed. So how the Gemara says it in Masechet Soita. It's the measure that a person measures. That's what's measured for him. In the words of Kabbalah, this is called bi'isarusa dilatata isarusa dila'ilah. Through an awakening from below, we cause a corresponding awakening from above. The Maggid of Mezrich says that this is a deeper meaning of the words in Pirkei Avos when we say da malamayla mimcha, which literally means know that which is above you. Person has to always be cognizant of the fact that Hashem is above him. But the Mezrich Maggid learns it, da, you should know malamayla, that which is above mimcha, it originates from you. And the Baal Shem Tov talks about it in the pasuk. It says Hashem tzilcha. Hashem is your shadow. So literally that means Hashem tzilcha yad yaminach. Hashem is shadowing you and guarding you and protecting you. Wherever you are, He's there. But the Baal Shem Tov says that just like a shadow, you move your right hand, the shadow moves its right hand. You move your left hand, the shadow moves its left hand. Hashem tzilcha, Hashem is your shadow. When we lift up our right hand and we give tzedakah, chesed, right? So then Hashem behaves to us also in a way of chesed. So the same thing is when it comes to Chanukah, this tremendous oyer, this tremendous light, which we experienced on Chanukah, which Taka illuminated the tremendous darkness of the time, was elicited by the Chashmonaim and their Mesiras Nefesh. Because what is Mesiras Nefesh? Mesiras Nefesh is also L'mayla min hateva. There is our nature. Mesiras Nefesh is when we go completely above our nature, go above what is natural and what we think we can do and what is normal. So the L'mayla min hateva, Mesiras Nefesh of the Chashmonaim, of them going to battle against the Greeks, although B'derech HaTeva didn't seem that they had any chances and there was no to be victorious. But that L'mayla min hateva behavior on the part of the Chashmonaim, that's what elicited this tremendous oyer of Chanukah. The light of Chanukah, which expresses itself in the menorah, which has eight candles to it, and which also and which is lit by night, and it's lit also outside. And this goes hand in hand with a very famous pirush of the Ramban. In the beginning of Parshas Bahalaischa, so the Parshas Bahalaischa begins with the mitzvah to light the menorah, Bahalaischa Saneres. So Rashi says over there that that after the 12 Nesim all brought their karbanos to dedicate, and their presence to dedicate the Mishkan. So it says that Aaron was chol shadaita. He felt somewhat offended. Here we're talking about Aaron. We can imagine he was a holy tzaddik, but to a certain extent he was offended. Why is everyone getting to bring gifts and presents for the Chanukah HaMishkan, Chanukah HaMizbeach, and what's with me? And that's the end of Parshas Nasa, is the gifts of the Nesim. So in the beginning of Parashat Baloischa, we have that Hashem tells Aaron, don't worry, Shachag Deila Mishalahem, you have even what greater than them. Why? Sha'ata Madlik Saneris, you light the candles. So the Rabban asks the obvious question, is that all that he does?
Does more than that.
He brings the Kohen Gadol, brings every day the Chavitin, all the Kabbanis, the Avodah in Kippur, and everything, right? Why was the Eibishter menachem him? Why did the Eibishter console Aaron dafka with Adlakas Haneris?
What's the connection here?
Yeah. So the Ramban says something meididik. He says the Bahaloischa Haneris is not talking about the Neris of the Beis Hamikdash; it's talking about the Neris Chanukah. Who were the ones who brought us the Neris Chanukah? And they were Kehanim. So the Eibush, when Hashem told Aaron, Shachag Gedeilu Mishalahem, is what that you have the Hadlakas HaNeiris. And all the Avodah on the Beis Hamikdash, the Mishkan that's being dedicated, and all the Avodah on the Beis Hamikdash is only temporary. Because there's going to come a time when the Beis Hamikdash will be, the Mishkan will be destroyed. And the Beis Hamikdash will be destroyed. And there won't be any more Karbanas. But the Neiros of Chanukah, they will be there forever. The Neiros Chanukah are forever. Even in times of Galus, the Neiros Chanukah, which were given to us by the children of Aaron, they are there forever. That's what the Ramban says.
It's nice beer.
So why is
the
the
Ramban?
holiday? Should be the
But no, it's a remes. It's a remes.
Oh, all right.
But now we understand this. The light in the Beis Hamikdash, because it was the Neiros, the Beis Hamikdash, even though Taka was an incredible oyer, but that oyer wasn't strong enough to combat the darkness. Why? Because it was an oyer which was 7, an oyer which was within Teva. That was the Elokus, the godliness, which comes down into this world and comes down into Derech HaTeva. And therefore, once Galus comes, that oyer disappears because that oyer can't combat the Choshech. But the Neiros Chanukah, which Hashem promised to Aaron, the Neiros Chanukah, because they came about through the Mesiras Nefesh of the Chashmonaim, Ayidei Kohanecha HaKadoshim, so therefore they could stand the test of time and they are forever, because whether it's dark or whether it's light, if it's light, they're there obviously. But even when there's darkness, the light of Chanukah, the whole point of Chanukah is V'Hashem Yagia Chashki. The idea of the Eibishter illuminates the darkness, and that is the oyer of Chanukah, which lights up the darkness. That's one of the inyanim talks about in Chassidus about Chanukah.
How long was the kingdom of the Chashmonaim? It was over 100 years. 103 years, right?
I'm not sure exactly.
That's I read.
But I believe. But you have to ask yourself: of the 103 years, how many of them were the kings of Chashmonaim? Were they ksherim? Were they? Because there were a lot of the kings of Chashmonaim towards the end that became tzeduk and mosa. That's not really relevant to this conversation so much. When it comes to Yom Tovim, so there's a famous, humorous saying that all the holidays, the Jewish holidays, they're all the same. They tried to kill us, God saved us, let's eat.
And be merry.
What?
And be merry.
No, but us, for some reason, whenever we're celebrating, we're eating, right? So what do we eat? Sometimes it's matzah, and sometimes it's latkes, and sometimes it's blintzes, and sometimes it's kreplach, and sometimes it's hamantash, and sometimes it's stuffed cabbage, kreplach, apple and honey, whatever it is. What? Right. But that does express some sort of a truth, which is that it would seem that every Yom Tov has a common theme, which is there was a danger. We were miraculously saved. Every Yom Tov, most of the Yom Tovim, so we celebrate. But that's like saying that, you see how many people we have in the room over here? We have a million of people, Kananara, right? And we're all the same. Why? We all have a nose. We all have a nose. We all have 2 ears, 2 arms, 2 legs, right? So we're all the same? Why isn't that statement true? That we're all the same? Sorry? Bifnimis. In other words, if you're looking mitzad the guf, mitzad the body, taka, we're all the same. More or less, okay. You have freckles, he doesn't. You have red hair, he has black hair. He has white hair. Whatever. He's taller, shorter, bigger nose, smaller nose, right? If you're looking at the guf, then we're more or less the same. What really divides us? What really, I don't mean divides us. What really distinguishes one from another? What makes me, and you is the neshama, is the spiritual element, that which I like and that which I don't like, and my talents, and my feelings, and my perceptions. That's what really
Your temperament.
My temperament. That's what really distinguishes one from another. In other words, the spiritual element. And the same thing is when it comes to Yiddishkeit. If you're going to look with a guf perspective, meaning if the definition of Chanukah is eating latke, spinning the dreidel, and even lighting the menorah, these are all actions, then how different is it than Purim and Pesach?
It's all the same.
It's all the same. Okay, so one time we blow a horn, one time we whip a chicken over our head, and one time we shake some branches. But these are all technicalities. That's like me having freckles and you not having freckles, right? In essence, they're all the same. But if we experience the neshama of every Yom Tov, the spiritual element, that's where every Yom Tov is truly unique. Because we live differently in every Yom Tov. The emphasis is different. The energy is different on a different Yom Tov. And every Yom Tov has a different energy. And we fully immerse ourselves in that energy on that Yom Tov. And we store up a reservoir of that energy, and it lasts us for the entire year until the next year to come. So whatever the theme of that Yom Tov is. Now, a guf is very important, as we all know, right? Neshama without a guf is it's a big problem. We want the guf, but at the end of the day, the guf has to be vivified by the neshama, made alive by the neshama. In other words, yes, we have to eat the latkes, and we have to spin the dreidel, and we have to light the menorah. But all of these things have to be made alive by the neshama of the Yom Tov. And really, that's what Chassidus is all about. We know Chassidus in Tinyas HaTorah is called Neshmasa De'iraisa, the neshama of Torah. The neshama of Torah means that it gives. There's the guf of Torah. The guf of Torah is how to light the menorah, when to light the menorah, and to say Al Anis and all that. And then there's the neshama. And if you have only the guf, then in a chanami, then everything, to a certain extent, Yiddishkeit can be boring. Because we're doing, every day we wake up, what am I doing today? I'm serving the Eibishter. So again, every day will be different in how we serve the Eibishter. Because today I serve Hashem by doing this, and tomorrow by doing that. But that's in the details. But if you have a neshama, then every single day is different. And that's for sure when it comes to Yom Tovim. It's a different life, it's a different energy. And that's really what a chassid is looking to do, that when it comes to Yom Tov, you try to find what is the meaning of this Yom Tov, and live with it. And that's why the famous part of the Baal Shem Tov, Hakoyre Samegilo Lamafreya Lo Yatsa, which means if someone reads the Megillah backwards, he wasn't Yotza. So the Baal Shem Tov says, what does Lamafreya mean? Lamafreya can also mean you're reading it as something that happened a long time ago. Lamafreya happened a long time ago. Lo Yatsa, you weren't Yotza, and Lo Yatsa, you didn't go out of your galus. Because they say that a story that the Alter Rebbe, we know, the Baal Tanya, he was the Baal Korah. He was a tremendous Baal Korah. And he used to read the Megillah. He used to read every Shabbos, but also he used to read the Megillah. And one time he wasn't in town when the Megillah on Purim, and his son, who eventually succeeded him, Reb Dov Ber, who's known as the Mittler Rebbe. So afterwards, he was asked. Someone asked him, "What did you think of the Megillah, of the reading? What do you think of the reading?" He said, "Wow, that was a beautiful story." When his father read, he never heard the beautiful story. It was all, the Achashverosh is Hamelach Shachris V'Nation Shalei is talking about Hashem, and Esther is Klal Yisrael, and in other words, all the So Sakeres and Megillah Frein. Chanukah is now. It's not something that happened some 2,000 years ago, 2,100 years ago. And we have to live with Chanukah. So what is Chanukah? As we're explaining, there's a lot of elements. There's a lot to learn.
How do you live with it?
1 second. So last week we spoke about last year, 2 weeks ago, we spoke about how there are two different types of avodah. There's the avodah of the tzaddik, the beautiful, wonderful, serene service of the tzaddik, the perfect person who is just syrupy sweet. Love for Hashem, fear for Hashem. That's one avodah, and that's a matamim, that's a delicacy for Hashem. And then there is the avodah of the struggler. Very far from serene. It's a very turbulent avodah. And it's constantly struggling. And it's constantly fluctuating, right? It's never steady. And that's also, we said, that's a delicacy for Hashem also. And not only also, but as the Alter Rebbe even adds over there, lahashiv es hanefesh. It restores the soul. That's how much Hashem enjoys that avodah of ours.
Restores his soul.
Alter Rebbe talks about in the context of foods.
Oh.
That the spicy and tart foods, remember we give that mashal, restores the soul. And you have to then transpose that onto the nimshal, which is about Hashem. Hashem is enjoying these delicacies. Whatever lahashiv es hanefesh means for Hashem. That's how much Hashem appreciates the work of the struggle. And we can say perhaps that really these two ideas, the avodah of the tzaddik versus the avodah of the struggler, is really the menorah of 7 candles and the menorah of 8 candles. The menorah of 7 candles, which was around the time of the Beis Hamikdash, which is when everything is holiness and everything is beautiful and pure, and then all you need is the normal light to illuminate whatever the surroundings of that time. But when there's a tremendous darkness around, then that light isn't enough. Then you need to elicit a higher light. And how do you elicit it? Through Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh is the struggles of life. That's the Mesiras Nefesh. Going beyond our nature. The tzaddik doesn't really go beyond his nature. The nature of the tzaddik is to learn Torah and do mitzvahs and do what's right. The struggler is the one who has to have this incredible Mesiras Nefesh. Incredible sacrifice to stay strong despite the tremendous darkness. And we're talking about now the internal darkness. We spoke, the whole world is within our heart. And the Greeks are within us. The Greeks are coming and telling us, why do you have to do Torah? Why do you have to learn Torah? Why do you have to do the mitzvahs? And lahaviram, we have that. We have the Yevani inside of us. We have the Greek inside of us. And to fight that Yevani, we need to have a tremendous amount of Mesiras Nefesh. But when we have that Mesiras Nefesh, we have to know that the oyer that we elicit from above, the light which we elicit from above, is a light which is much higher than the light which a tzaddik can elicit. That's the light of the Chanukah menorah. And that's talking what the Alter Rebbe says in the Perek over here. That kadiskafya sitra achra, when the sitra achra is suppressed, and the key word is suppressed, not when it is transformed, when it is suppressed. In other words, you have the darkness inside you, it's there, but you suppress it in the course of your struggles. Istalek yikara de kuchabrichu bechula almin. The incredible glory of Hashem fills all the worlds in a way which is much greater than anything else can evoke or elicit, is the avodah of iskafia, the avodah of suppressing the Yetzer Hara, which again is something which requires a tremendous amount of Mesiras Nefesh. So the spirit of Chanukah is really when we get the koyach for the entire year, the koyach of Mesiras Nefesh. That's really the yom. You think about it. Pesach is not about Mesiras Nefesh. Shavuos is not about Mesiras Nefesh. Sukkot is not about Mesiras Nefesh. Where's the Chanukah? That's Mesiras Nefesh. When confronted with a tremendous amount of darkness, not to be daunted by it, and not to be nispal from it, and not to despair from the tremendous darkness that there is, but realizing that could be Rabbi Bayad Ma'atim and Tmeim B'Yad Tohirim, and going with a Mesiras Nefesh against that darkness and the tremendous light that can evoke. That's Chanukah. And how many times does that happen? There's the darkness within our own life. Again, internal darkness I'm talking about. And sometimes we look and say, I can't conquer this darkness. It's Rabbi, it's too strong for me. They have elephants. My Nefesh Bahamas has elephants, and my poor Nefesh Alakis, what does it have? It has barely anything. So the lesson of Chanukah is that when you have Mesiras Nefesh, there is no choshech, there is no darkness. We're talking about internal darkness, which is too much for us to overcome. And when we overcome it, we have the Mesiras Nefesh, again, we elicit this tremendous light from Hashem, which Taka, as we mentioned, Vashem Yagia Chashki, which illuminates the darkness and sends it flying away, as was by the miracle of Chanukah. So I thought that we're in the middle of learning Perich of Zayin, and the message of Perich of Zayin, which is the beauty of the struggle, and it's something which is actually very relevant, to Chanukah, and that's always important to whenever comes along a Yom Tov or whatever. Anything that we learn really is to find yourself in it. To find yourself. We're not talking about Greeks from 2,200 years ago. We're talking about the Greek from today. The Greek from today, which is within everyone, and Chanukah is the time to focus on that, on filling up our storehouses of Mesiras Nefesh and determination to fight the darkness, and knowing that Taka, the end result will be that the Eibishter will give V'ata b'rachamecha Rabim, the Eibishter will grant us victory. Now, this struggle in Perich of Zayin, we started last week Perich of Zayin, and we want to continue on from over here. We spoke last week, if you're a struggler, you have to understand that struggle isn't incidental to your life. It isn't incidental to your Avodah. It's not an impediment to your Avodah. It's not an impediment to your service. It's not incidental to your service. It is your service. You were put down here in this world to struggle. And this is so true that you have to struggle even when you think you don't have to struggle. Because you were put down here to struggle. To put this in different words, as explained on different occasions, we all have two nefashos, two energy sources. I think we gave the example, right, of a monitor and a keyboard, and there's two hard drives. Hard drive number one is the Nefesh Elokis, hard drive number two is the Nefesh Bahamas. And at any moment we're plugged into one. Our avodah in life is to always be plugged into the Nefesh Elokis, always to be plugged into the godly soul. When we're tempted to do something wrong, that's when we all understand that we have to struggle. But what about when we're not tempted to do something wrong? Here's where the concept of the Rebbe introduces the idea of iskafia, or also known as the idea of kadesh atzmecha b'mutalach. That even in that which is permitted, we have to be holy, we have to abstain. The Rebbe brings down from the Gemara, it brings down the Pasuk Kadeshim to you, but also the Gemara that says, Talmidei Chachamim, they would eat 2 hours after everyone else. Their breakfast, everyone would eat in the 4th hour, they would eat in the 6th hour. Why? This is the idea of Kadesh Aschal Mutalach. And the question is why? The food is kosher. Why should I delay eating for 2 hours? Why should I abstain from eating something if I want to eat it? What's wrong with it? But this is where we need to have a paradigm shift. If life is about doing what's right, then there's nothing wrong with it. But if your goal in life is to live a life of the Nefesh Elokis, then if I want to do it, that's a nefesh habahamis saying I want to do it. Defer it. Because every moment of life is a struggle. The struggle isn't only when you're tempted to do something wrong. Every moment in life, the question is, why am I living? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Is this because I want to? Or is it because this is part of my avodas Hashem, part of my service of Hashem? So if I want to drink this water right now, and I say, I push it aside, I'm not going to drink it right now. What I did right now was iskafia sitra achra. I subdued my nefesh habahamis, which wants it. Not that there's anything wrong with drinking the water, but once we understand the importance of the struggle against the nefesh habahamis, we understand that the struggle isn't limited to times when we're tempted to do something wrong, but actually we should relish in struggling every single moment of the day. Every single moment of the day is another opportunity for me to knock down the sitra achra, to knock down that darkness. And when I knock it down, I cause again this tremendous effect above of the Oyer of Hashem being revealed in all the worlds, which is, I mentioned, the analogous idea of the Chanukah menorah. And with that, we finished pretty much Perich of Zion. So let's just recap and say what we're holding right now. We started Perich Vav talking about the importance of being happy and how vital it is to be happy. But there are things that get us down. So in Perich Vav we talked about material concerns which can cause a person to be in a negative emotional space. And then we moved on and we spoke about spiritual concerns, and we started off and then the Perich Vav talking about when a person is down and upset and saddened by bad choices and averes that he or she may have done in the past. In Perich Zayin now we moved and talked about what if a person is bogged down in a negative emotional space because of the struggles of life, and that we already dealt with. And now we move on to Perich Ches, another area which can cause another area which can cause us to be ba'atzvus, to be sad or upset or in a negative emotional space, and that would be machshavas zaras during davening. During davening or during learning, when a person is struggling with inappropriate thoughts while serving Hashem, such as during davening or during learning. What is inappropriate? There are many levels of inappropriate, but anything which isn't about davening, during davening, is inappropriate.
How do you control that? You have to meditate, have some sort of focus and meditation, be in a meditative state. If someone has constant random thoughts all day long.
The humorous joke is said about this chassid who goes to his Rebbe and says to the Rebbe, I have the whole issue, the parrots, he wants me to pay him, I don't have the money, I don't know what to do. The Rebbe says, you'll be fine. He says, because you have more time every day to think about the issue and come up with a solution than he does, because you daven Shemona Esrei 3 times a day, and he doesn't. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of times davening is a time when our heads are
most active.
Sorry?
Most active,
right? The question here isn't what to do about it, although that will be answered in this Perek. That's not the question. The question over here, the larger context over here is simcha. When a person is bothered by the fact that he tries to daven, he tries to learn, and all these thoughts enter his mind to distract him, and from that the person deduces that the davening and the learning aren't really
good quality.
Sorry?
Not good quality.
They're not good quality. That's and that causes a person not to be besimcha, to be sad. That's the issue here. In other words, the issue here isn't the thoughts, because the larger context we're dealing with over here is simcha. So in Perich of Zion, in the last Perich, we explained that if a person has bad thoughts during the day, so there the answer is be happy. You're doing a mitzvah, right? You're struggling with nefesh habahamis, and you're doing the mitzvah of v'leis asuru achi levachim v'achri yinecha. But if a person is davening, the person says, don't do me any favors. I'm not interested in struggling right now. I don't want to do any mitzvahs. I want to daven. Ha'oisik b'mitzvah pater min mitzvah. I want to daven now. I want to do the mitzvah of davening. I don't want to do now the mitzvah of v'lo yisasuru achil v'afchem v'achinechem. I know that it's very important to suppress the sitra achra and you're causing incredible things, but leave that for later. Right now, laz mitziru, let me rest. I want to daven and I can't daven. So what does that mean? That means that my davening isn't real and isn't sincere. The Rebbe says, don't think that your davening isn't real and isn't sincere. To the contrary, it's very real, it's very sincere. And because of how beautiful your davening is, that's why your Yetzer Hara, your Nefesh Bahamis is feeling threatened and throwing these thoughts into your mind. So this is a counterintuitive way of looking. If you're trying to daven and you're being bombarded with thoughts, instead of saying, oh, my davening is terrible, you have to realize that means that it's good. So keep on davening. Keep on going. You're doing very good. You're doing very fine. You're doing so good that with its last gasping breath, the Nefesh Bahamis is trying to stop you. A last ditch effort. Alter Rebbe says, this is where the concept of two nefashos, of two souls, really comes into play. If you had only one nefesh, and then while you were davening, you kept on getting other thoughts also, then you're right, then you're davening, taka, there's something wrong with your davening. You're not maintaining focus. But if you accept the notion of two nefashos, that you're not one personality, you're actually two personalities, then your davening can be 100% pure and 100% holy. And the fact that the Nefesh Bahamis is trying to disturb it, that's an outside force. It's like, for example, imagine that the Rebbe gives a mashal. Imagine that you're trying to daven, and there's a guy standing next to you trying to disturb you, and trying to speak to you and disturb you. Would you deduce from that there's something wrong with your davening and that you're doing something wrong? It's the goy. So you have to understand, just as we mentioned before, there's the Yevani inside you. There's the goy inside you. There's the goy inside you who is determined to disturb your davening. That doesn't mean your davening isn't good. Yeah.
In the beginning of Tanya, like you spoke about, the author ever lays out you have two souls. You mentioned the animal soul and the godly soul. The animal soul is the source of the bad midos, some good midos and most of the bad midos. And then the divine soul is Kodesh Baruch Hu, Atma, right? It's like killing Hilchah. So, and like you mentioned in this class, that the animal soul, what is this animal? It's just your selfishness, basically, right? That's what you said. It's your own concern for yourself, something like that. The godly soul, and the godly soul's concern is God. So, I always have this. I don't know how to answer this question. So, but here you're saying, there's an additional idea, which what you just said, which is that the animal soul, not just is concerned with self, but is this idea that it's like maybe you call it the Yetzer Hara, like it wants to go against God. Its concern is to oppose Hashem or godliness, like it's like evil kind of thing. So, which one is it? Is it both? Is it you hear the question? Is it just this idea of being this selfish thing, and it's not that it's so concerned about God or not God, he just wants to satisfy its own needs? Or is it this idea that, godliness is waking up, it's time for me to go against God? So that adds into it this element of evil, not just selfishness. So what is it exactly?
That's a very good question. There is the Nefesh Bahamis, which isn't evil. There is an element of the Nefesh Bahamis, I'd say a spin-off of the Nefesh Bahamis, which is the Yetzer Hara, which absolutely wants to do the wrong thing.
And do it like pure evil, like to go against God.
Right.
Yes?
Right.
So,
in fact, that when the Alter Rebbe, the tzaddik gets rid of the Yetzer Hara, not of the Nefesh Bahamis. The tzaddik channels the Nefesh Bahamis, but the Yetzer Hara has to get, that's what the tzaddik gets rid of. Yeah. Now, the analysis of where the Nefesh Bahamis ends and where the Yetzer Hara begins, and what's the motivation of the Yetzer Hara, that's a great question. But yeah, there are both of those elements over there. But I do think that in a larger sense, the Nefesh Bahamis' fear of the Nefesh Elokis taking control. In other words, the ego's control, the ego's fear that it's not going to be the center of attention anymore, which would be the case if the Nefesh Elokis takes charge, will cause it to try to torpedo the efforts of the Nefesh Elokis to express its bittul nature. Because just the bittul of the Nefesh Elokis threatens the Nefesh Bahamis to the point where it might react on and want to do the exact opposite, which would lead you to the Yetzer Hara element of it.
But you're saying even on the level, just the ego part, just the animal part, just that part would want to torpedo because it needs to protect itself.
But not because it's bad.
Evil.
Right. But that could lead to this evil spin-off, which is just trying to...
It only...
Yeah. It's a fascinating discussion, but let's move on.
Okay.
So, in a larger sense, this idea of the two nefashos is a bigger, allows us to be besimcha for other reasons. This is perhaps one of the deeper ideas that the Rebbe is trying to convey to us in this perek. Is that we know that serving Hashem brings us simcha. We're going to talk about that more in chapter 31. It's maybe the greatest simcha that we have in our life. Think about it. The moments when we can do a mitzvah with an MS, right? When we can learn something, learn Torah with an MS. We can daven with an MS. And those moments of serving Hashem bring us simcha. Why? Because the Nefesh Elokis takes joy in that. Now, the Nefesh Bahamis doesn't like that. First of all, doesn't like that we're happy with holy things. And second of all, doesn't like that we're happy. Because as mentioned, the Nefesh Bahamis, the worst thing for the Nefesh Bahamis is when we're happy, because when we're happy, we have the energy to fight it. The Nefesh Bahamis wants us not to be happy. So, when we do something proper, we do something good, we serve Hashem, we're happy about it. What does the Nefesh Bahamis come along and do? What is its what's its tactic? You're excited you learned some Torah. You're excited that you gave some tzedakah. You're excited that you did a mitzvah. Hey, what did you do last night? The words of the Gemara, Itkar my avdus b'urta. Remember what you did last night. What are you planning on doing tonight? How much time did you waste today? You're not so holy. Don't get so excited. Don't be so besimcha. You're a hypocrite. That's the favorite words of Nefesh Bahamis. It's favorite card. You're a hypocrite. Don't be so excited. You're such a big tzaddik. I know you. Nefesh Bahamis says, I know you, right? This is us. This is the inner conversation that we have. And that's really what the Alter Rebbe is addressing in this perek. We have to come back to the Nefesh Bahamis, come back and say, no. That davening was incredible, it was beautiful. That tzedakah I gave was pure and holy. The Torah that I learned was completely untainted. Pure elokus, pure godliness, pure connection to Hashem. What I did yesterday, what I possibly might do tomorrow, that's irrelevant. That's you. That's the Nefesh Bahamis. What I do when I'm channeling you, going back to the two hard drives, what I do when I'm channeling you doesn't in any way impinge upon the holiness and purity of what I do when I'm attached to the Nefesh Elokis. That was 100% holy. There was nothing wrong with that. If I'm one person and 1 minute I'm davening and learning, and 1 minute I'm doing something the opposite, so then that's hypocritical and there's something wrong. There's schizophrenia going on over here. And there's something wrong. And that's the way most people look at it. And how many times we look at ourselves and we look at others and we say, oh, that person, look at that mitzvah, but I know that he does all this other stuff, right? We tend to say that. But that's making the mistake of presuming that it's one nefesh. So if it's one nefesh, wow, if he can do that other evil stuff, then he can't do a mitzvah properly. He's a bad person. But no, he's not a bad person. He has a bad nefesh bahamis. But when he's doing the mitzvah, he's channeling, at this moment, he's channeling his nefesh alikis. And the same thing about ourselves. We're not bad. We have a nefesh bahamis. But when we're serving the Eibishter, so what's my goal in life? What's my goal in life? My goal in life is that I have to have more of those holy and pure moments of davening and learning and connection. And less of the others. But not because the others make my in the words of the Gemara, Avera is not mechaba mitzvah. And Avera can't extinguish a mitzvah. Why? Because it's two different places. So I have to be happy with every time I serve the Eibishter and every single time I daven. And the fact that I might have thoughts, that's fine. That doesn't mean that my davening isn't good. And I have to take joy in the Torah mitzvahs I do. And I have to understand that I have two nefashos. So in the idea of two nefashos is very key to the larger context over here, which is the idea of simcha. Because in order to be besimcha, again, I have to be able to eat with Hashem besimcha, serve Hashem besimcha. And to serve Hashem besimcha, I have to understand that my service is pure. And it is. It is. When you sit down and say, I want to do this mitzvah and I'm serving Hashem, we're not talking about if a person is doing taka mitzvahs for egotistical reasons. That's taka, that's a problem with the mitzvah. What I'm saying is, if you taka daven and learn and do a mitzvah, and you do it, say it, l'shem yichud k'shem b'richu, I'm doing it for the Eibishter, I'm doing it with Kabbalah Sel, you have to know that that's something which Hashem treasures. Hashem treasures that because it's pure, and Hashem treasures it, and you should treasure it, and that should bring you a tremendous amount of simcha. So that's the end of Perich of Ches. So we've concluded the part about the different things that make us, that we shouldn't be besimcha. And we went through the material issues in our life, and let's quickly recap. We went through the material issues in our life, and for that the answer was the idea of Gamazul Atoiva, and understanding that the idea of the higher world, the Alma de Iskasya, and Ein Ra Yerid Milmayla, there's no evil comes from above, it's only a closeness to Hashem. We moved into the idea of a person who is saddened and upset by Averis that he has done, and we explained that there has to be set times for that. And we explain that there's two things. There's the timing, and there's also the execution. How you're supposed to feel bad in a way which afterwards leaves you feeling better, makes you more besimcha. We spoke about that. And then we moved on to how to deal with when a person's upset and worried and saddened and just emotionally dragged down by suffering. By struggling. And we explained how struggling is not something to... Struggling only drags you down if you view it as meaningless and useless and a negative phenomenon. But if we understand that that's who we are, that's our mission in the world. Our mission in the world is to struggle. Our mission, why did we come down over here? Remember we spoke about in class, the whack-a-mole game, right? Remember we spoke about knocking the crocodiles. Every single time the Nefesh Bahamis asserts itself, we knock it down. That's our goal here in this world. Yeah.
If we came here to struggle, so why it said that thing in Yom Kippur, "Mutav la'adam shelo nivra," better that a person will not be born.
I think that's why it's better not to be born. Hey, by the way, it doesn't say mutav le. It doesn't say that. Noyach le.
No.
What does noyach mean? You tell me.
Comfortable.
More comfortable. It's easier not to be born because we have to struggle. It doesn't say better. Noyach. It's easier, Taka. It's easier to be in Gan Eden. Yeah. But once we are created, we have to struggle, we have to learn Torah and do mitzvahs. And then we moved on to Perich of Ches, which is what is when we are downed by what seems to be hypocrisy, or by the fact that it seems to us that our avodah is impeached by whether it's machshava zaros or other things. And we talk about how we have to be besimcha with our avodah, with the understanding that the avodah is pure from the nefesh elokis, and never allow the fact that we have another soul to disturb the simcha that we have from the Torah mitzvahs that we do. And now, in Perek Chavtes, which I guess we'll start next week, Perek Chavtes, we're going to talk about what if a person isn't suffering from negative, is not in a negative emotional space. It's not that he's sad or upset or worried or anxious or stressed, but the person just isn't excited. Can't, not what? Unenthused, right? That's right. So we'll learn how we have to splinter the piece of wood. We'll learn that in Mitzvah Hashem next week. Feil Chanukah, everyone. Have a good Shabbos. We should all bring the light of the Chanukah candles into our homes, into our hearts, and then out the window and in the entire world.
Amen.